Ja, guten Tag, meine Damen und Herren. Welcome back on the Hoplite channel. You are here, and I am glad to have you for this new series I am doing for The Great Reset and the author Klaus Schwab in his 2017 book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution. That's right. Okay. Thanks for coming back, everybody. I told you I was going to start this topic, and it's going to be a long one. We're going to stretch this into probably 9 videos. This is part 1 for 3 parts of the Fourth Industrial Revolution by Klaus Martin Schwab, and let's get this thing started without further ado. I'm moving away from the Ukraine war. As sad as that affair is, like I said, I think it's all over. But the crying. I might return to it later as things develop, but I believe that thing is in the books. Sad as it is to say. But anyway, today we're talking about something of a far grander scale, and the Fourth Industrial Revolution is part of this Great Reset idea, and it's right now, I believe, a popular topic, and I think it was an interesting thing to look into, and we're going to try to figure out what Mr. Schwab and his World Economic Forum has planned for the world, and we're going to learn through what he has written down what those things may be. So let's get started here, and for the readings I will provide the go-bys as always, but let's get a little background for the author, because we can't fully understand his work unless we know a little bit about himself, right? He is speaking through his medium, which is the written word, but let's get a little background on our boy here, Klaus, to see if we can better understand where he's coming from. So, as I said, Klaus Schwab, born in Ravensburg, Germany, March 30th, 1938, which would make him 84 years old. He's even older than our good President Joe Biden, who we love and care for deeply. Yeah, he's 84, and he was born in 1938, Germany, which is an interesting time, an interesting place to be born. But yeah, I believe his family fled Germany after the war, and lived in Switzerland for a time, and moved back to Germany some years later. But for his education, we see that he has a doctorate in mechanical engineering from the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology. Okay, Klaus? All right, no argument there. Mechanical engineering, that's no joke. All right, you got to have a big brain to get a doctorate in that. That's legit, hard science. And what'd you do next? Well, he goes and gets a doctorate in economics from the University of Freiburg. Economics, yeah, it's not quite a hard science. It's a little bit of theoretical stuff going on there, but you know what? It's not, synchronized lesbian basket weaving. It's a legit degree. Okay, 2 doctorates. What did you do next, Klaus? He gets a master's in public administration from the Harvard University Kennedy School of Government. And public administration is exactly as it sounds. It's BS. It's just, it's a fluff degree. But he put Harvard on the resume, and he got a master's. Why not 2 doctorates? Might as well get the master's. He's almost like a millennial, right? It's like, should I go and get a job after getting a doctorate? Like, should I become a mechanical engineer? Now I'll just go back and get a doctorate and a master's, and they'll stretch that out for 6 years. But what did he do after getting these 3 degrees? Impressive as they are. Did he go into politics? Did he go into law? Did he go into engineering? No. He went right back to school and became a professor of business policy at the University of Geneva, and he held this position from 1972 to 2003. So 31 years he was a professor teaching business policy, whatever that is, in Geneva. So, all right, so our boy Klaus, he's an academic, right? He's an intellectual. Nothing against that, but okay, that's his work history. But we see that he also has served on the company boards of the Swatch Group, which is, I believe, the largest watch conglomerate company in the world. They own brands like, Omega, Hamilton, Longines, Breguet, Blancpain. Cool watches. I like them. So, the company board, not sure, how you got that job, but, they wanted you. He was on the board of the Daily Mail Group, which is I'm not going to call it a rag because that's mean. I'll just say it's a publication that caters to a variety of different interests. Yeah, that's a nice way to say it. And he also was on the board, the company board of the Von Tobel Holding Company, which is a Swiss wealth and asset management firm. Again, the guy's been an academic his whole life. Why he was on these company boards, I don't know. Who knows what he did? But I doubt he was the CFO or the CTO or the CEO of any of these businesses. Last, though, I thought this was the most interesting. He's a former member of the steering committee for the Bilderberg Group. Now, if you want to indulge yourself and Google Bilderberg Group, you'll probably give yourself a couple hours time to research that thoroughly, because you're going to get quite the volume to go and digest. You're going to go down the rabbit hole if you're like me, if you research the Bilderberg Group, just telling you. But the theory is that it's a very secretive and elite group where all of the top academics, all of the world leaders, famous titans of industry, leading elites in their fields, all meet to discuss world affairs, where the world is going, the current trends, and where they think the world should go. And the theory is that once these people are done meeting, they fan out into their separate corners of the world with their marching orders, and they make it happen. That's just the theory. And a lot of people think they're up to no good, and that they're really just meeting for the purposes of enriching themselves and making mankind into slaves. But that's their opinion. Maybe you should look into it and formulate your own. But that's where he was the former steering committee member. All right. So without further ado, jumping from the author to his book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution by Klaus Schwab. We're going to begin with the introduction, and I'll stop periodically to discuss what we read. So let's jump to the introduction, page 1. Mr. Schwab said, "Consider the unlimited possibilities of having billions of people connected by mobile devices, giving rise to unprecedented processing power, storage capabilities, and knowledge access. Or think about the staggering confluence of emerging technology breakthroughs, covering wide-ranging fields such as artificial intelligence, robotics, the Internet of Things, autonomous vehicles, 3D printing, nanotechnology, biotechnology, material science, energy storage, and quantum computing, to name a few. Many of these innovations are in their infancy, but they're already reaching an inflection point in their development as they build on and amplify each other in a fusion of technologies across the physical, digital, and biological worlds." Okay, so page 1, I got to stop right out of the gate. He's telling you where exactly this book is going to go in no uncertain terms. And I thank him for that, because he cuts right to the quick. He's talking about all of these wide-ranging fields of technology such as AI, robotics, the Internet of Things, which is, I guess, akin to blockchain technology, autonomous vehicles, 3D printing, nanotech, biotech, material science, quantum computing, blah, blah, blah. All of these things are being developed right now in 2022. He wrote this in 2017, so it was going on even then. They're being developed right now, and they're going to become such an integral part of your everyday life, it will be as though you and technology are inseparable. It'll be the blending, the meshing of two worlds that will never again be otherwise. The digital, physical, and biological worlds will become one. And that's essentially what he's getting at with the Fourth Industrial Revolution. It is the merging of man and machine, and how this revolution is going to be managed going forward. Okay, continuing. While the profound uncertainty surrounding the development and adoption of emerging technologies means that we do not yet know how the transformation driven by this industrial revolution will unfold, their complexity and interconnectedness across sectors imply that all stakeholders of global society, governments, business, academia, and civil society have a responsibility to work together to better understand the emerging trends. Shared understanding is particularly critical if we're to shape a collective future that reflects common objectives and values. We must have a comprehensive and globally shared view of how technology is changing our lives and those of future generations, and how it is reshaping the economic, social, cultural, and human context in which we live. The changes are so profound that from the perspective of human history, there has never been a time of greater promise or potential peril. My concern, however, is that decision makers are too often caught in traditional, linear, non-disruptive thinking, or too absorbed by immediate concerns to think strategically about the forces of disruption and innovation shaping our future. It is not only changing the what and the how of doing things, but also who we are. In writing this book, my intention is to provide a primer on the Fourth Industrial Revolution, what it is, what it will bring, how it will impact us, and what can be done to harness it for the common good. This volume is intended for all those with an interest in our future who are committed to using the opportunities of this revolutionary change to make the world a better place. I have three main goals. One, to increase awareness of the comprehensiveness and speed of the technological revolution. Two, to create a framework for thinking about the technological revolution that outlines the core issues. And three, to provide a platform from which to inspire public-private cooperation and partnerships. The more we think about how to harness the technology and the revolution inherent, the more we will examine ourselves and the underlying social models that these technologies embody and enable. And the more we will have an opportunity to shape the revolution in a manner that improves the state of the world. Okay, I add the accent there at the end just for effect. But, okay, so he's talking about all these technologies being developed and how it's going to affect everybody no matter where you are or who you are. And it could change our understanding of who we are as human beings. And he sees that he is responsible for driving this fourth industrial revolution into the path it needs to take. He is going to grab the ship by the helm and steer it into calm waters. Klaus Schwab is going to do this for us. Yes, and he wants to increase awareness, create a framework for thinking about the revolution, and provide a platform to inspire public-private cooperation, right? Partnerships for the collective. Where have you heard that in history, right? Where have you heard a world leader or a politician or someone in politics, someone in political power, say something to the effect of, well, this is all going to be for the common good, and we need to all jump on the same page. We all need to have awareness of what's going on, and we all need to throw in together. It's for the greater good. It's for the collective. It's for everybody, right? It just so happens that these are all my ideas, and I'm going to be creating the framework for how we proceed, but don't worry, it's for your benefit. Think about it. It's been in history once or twice. All right, continuing. He says, shaping the fourth industrial revolution to ensure that it is empowering and human-centered rather than divisive and dehumanizing is not a task for any single stakeholder or sector or for one region, industry, or culture. The fundamental and global nature of this revolution means it will affect and be influenced by all countries, economies, sectors, and people. These interactions and collaborations are needed to create positive, common, and hope-filled narratives, enabling individuals and groups from all parts of the world to participate in and benefit from the ongoing transformations. Much of the information and my own analysis in this book are based on ongoing projects and initiatives of the World Economic Forum and have been developed, discussed, and challenged at recent forum gatherings. Thus, this book provides a framework for shaping the future activities of the World Economic Forum. All right, so there's going to be transformations, people. I hope you're ready for it. But don't worry, we've shopped a lot of these ideas at the World Economic Forum, and people seem to have it together there. And this book is going to provide a framework for the World Economic Forum going forward. So we've got this. Don't worry. The World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab is on the case. All right, let's continue to the chapter 1. Klaus said, the first industrial revolution spanned from about 1760 to around 1840, triggered by the construction of railroads and the invention of steam engine. It ushered in mechanical production. The second industrial revolution, which started in the late 19th century and into the early 20th century, made mass production possible, fostered by the advent of electricity and the assembly line. The third industrial revolution began in the 1960s. It's usually called the computer or digital revolution because it was catalyzed by the development of semiconductors, mainframe computing, personal computing, and the internet. I believe today we're at the beginning of a fourth industrial revolution. It began at the turn of this century and builds on the digital revolution. It is characterized by a much more ubiquitous and mobile internet, by smaller and more powerful sensors and that have become cheaper, and by artificial intelligence, machine learning. This is why Massachusetts Institute of Technology professors Eric Bjornolfsson and Andrew McAfee have famously referred to this period as the second machine age, the title of their 2014 book, stating that the world is at an inflection point where the effect of these digital technologies will manifest with full force through automation and the making of unprecedented things. In Germany, there are discussions about Industry 4.0, a term coined at the Hanover Fair of 2011 to describe how this revolutionized the organization of global value chains. Okay, so stop again right there. He's saying that this new fourth industrial revolution is a continuation of the digital revolution, which would have been the 1960s, 1970s, 80s internet age, where the internet was created. And he's saying that with the previous industrial revolutions, be it the steam and mechanical revolution and then the electrical revolution, everything that happened in those revolutions essentially gave way to the succeeding revolution. And that this revolution will be an age of unprecedented things, right? That sounds pretty revolutionary, right? Things will be happening in our world that probably a generation or even 2 generations ago could have scarcely been dreamed of. And this Industry 4.0 or the new machine age is going to be largely driven by things like artificial intelligence and machine learning. Keep that in mind as we read on. Going further, page 8. By enabling smart factories, the fourth industrial revolution creates a world in which virtual and physical systems of manufacturing globally cooperate with each other in a flexible way. In this revolution, emerging technologies and broad-based innovation are diffusing much faster and more widely than in previous ones, which continue to unfold in some parts of the world. The second industrial revolution has yet to be fully experienced by 17% of the world, as nearly 1.3 billion people still lack electricity. This is also true for the third industrial revolution, with more than half the world's population, 4 billion people, most of whom live in the developing world lacking internet access. The spindle, which is the hallmark of the first industrial revolution, took almost 120 years to spread outside of Europe. By contrast, the internet permeated across the globe in less than a decade. Still valid today is a lesson from the first industrial revolution, that the extent to which society embraces technological innovation is a major determinant of progress. The government and public institutions, as well as the private sector, need to do their part, but it's also essential that citizens see the long-term benefits. I am convinced that the fourth industrial revolution will be every bit as powerful, impactful, and historically important as the previous 3. However, I have 2 primary concerns about the factors that may limit the potential of the fourth industrial revolution to be effectively and cohesively realized. First, I feel the required levels of leadership and understanding of the changes underway across all sectors are low when contrasted with the need to rethink our economic, social, and political systems to respond to the fourth industrial revolution. As a result, both at the national and global levels, the requisite institutional framework to govern the diffusion of innovation and mitigate the disruption is inadequate at best, at worst, absent altogether. Second, the world lacks a consistent, positive, and common narrative that outlines the opportunities and challenges of the fourth industrial revolution, a narrative that is essential if we are to empower a diverse set of individuals and communities and avoid a popular backlash against the fundamental changes underway. Popular backlash, Klaus, why would that happen? This is all supposed to be great. So in this section, he's talking about how the industrial revolutions that preceded the fourth took some time, but each revolution that succeeded the previous took less time. The first industrial revolution, steam power and the mechanical age, that took, give or take, 50 to 70 years. And it was, it gave way to the Industrial Revolution in America, which took place between, 1880 and 1905. But then with the advent of electricity and the harnessing of electrical power to replace steam, that industrial revolution took over at twice the speed of the steam age. But the computing age the digital age, which began in the 60s, well, that took barely a decade to span from one side of the globe to the other. And he's saying the fourth industrial revolution, which is a continuation of the digital age, will be no exception, and it will span from one end of the globe to the other as fast, if not faster, than the internet did. So he's saying that, we got to get people on the same page here because they lack the vision to understand that this technology and everything that's going to be a part of the fourth industrial revolution is literally becoming part of their lives as we speak, but we don't have everybody on the same page as how we're going to proceed. We need to talk about the fundamentals of how we use this technology and the ethical questions. And he's saying that this needs to be done again for the purposes that people see long-term benefit, but that public and private institutions don't have a monopoly over the technologies that will become part of our lives via the fourth industrial revolution. So it all sounds fine and good right now, right? But I'm still hearing this underlying current, this theme of the collective, right? There needs to be a common narrative. There needs to be one way of understanding this technology, and there needs to be a cohesive collaboration to implement its use. But he never says why, right? He never says why it has to be this way. He's just saying, listen, it's going to have to be for everybody, and that's just the way it's going to be. And someone's going to have to take lead on this and drive the world in the direction it needs to go as one collective global, community. All right, continuing. Page 9. Today's disruptors, Airbnb, Uber, Alibaba, and the like, now household names, were relatively unknown just a few years ago. The ubiquitous iPhone was first launched in 2007, yet there has been as many as 2 billion smartphones by the end of 2015. In 2010, Google announced its first fully autonomous car. Such vehicles could soon become a widespread reality on the road. In the second machine age, Bjornson and McAfee argue that computers are so dexterous it's virtually impossible to predict what applications they may be used for in a few years. Artificial intelligence is all around us, from self-driving cars and drones to virtual assistants and translation software. This is transforming our lives. I want to stop on this page because he's used this word before, and I hear this word way too often, and it's like a buzzword for pseudo-intellectuals. It's disruptor or disruption or disruptive, right? Oh, this technology is so disruptive. And have you heard about this company? No, who are they? Oh, they're real disruptors. And they're disrupting everything. This doesn't make any sense to me. And it sounds like someone's trying to make a bigger deal of something than it possibly is, or they're trying to kind of lead you along this path that what's going to happen in the next several years on account of this technology will literally transform your way of life, whether you like it or not. And that sounds like a revolution. To me, that sounds, again, like, I'm going to say it's like kind of communist. When you're talking about a disruption, a transformation, the collective, a narrative, you have to notice patterns, right? Intelligent people do one thing better than everybody else, and that's they're able to notice patterns. They're able to see things they've seen before and deduce where those patterns lead to. As in, oh, I see a train wreck coming, better get off the tracks. Or I know this isn't a good place to be right now. Or maybe I want to invest in this because based upon the patterns of previous markets, this is done well. Intelligent people notice patterns of speech, patterns of weather, patterns of behavior. The word disruptor, this sounds like the same kind of vernacular I would hear for people who are, communist revolutionaries. That's just my take. And I don't look at Airbnb, Uber, and Alibaba as disruptive, right? When Uber came out, I was actually pumped because now I had this app where I could order a taxi. It would show up at my house, take me to the airport, and I knew exactly when that car was going to arrive at my house. I knew estimate how long that drive was going to be, and I knew how much it was going to cost. Did it disrupt the cab company I don't call anymore? Yeah, but who didn't it disrupt? It didn't disrupt the rest of the population who aren't, working for cab companies. Technology should do one thing and one thing only, and that is for the people developing it, it should raise their standard of living to a higher degree. For example, electricity, right? The Industrial Revolution. The second. The second Industrial Revolution, I think, is probably the most important because electrical power is everywhere, and it's still part of the second, third, and fourth Industrial Revolution. Without electricity, you don't have a third or a fourth Industrial Revolution. But technology raised the standard of living and made things easier, right? I don't have to light a candelabra and walk around my house trying to find my way around with candle power. I can flick on a light switch and one light could practically illuminate an entire room. And it's very cost effective. The risk of fire is so minimal I don't even think about it. That made life better. That wasn't a disruption, right? That was progress. That was innovation. This word disruptor I disagree with. But anyway, that's just me. All right, let's continue. AI has made impressive progress driven by exponential increases in computing power and the availability of vast amounts of data, from software used to discover new drugs to algorithms that predict our cultural interests. Many of these algorithms learn from breadcrumb trails of data that we can leave in the digital world. This results in new types of machine learning and automated discovery that enable intelligent robots and computers to self-program and find optimal solutions from first principles. All right, I'm going to stop on this page too. So yeah, breadcrumb trails of data. AI is learning. There's this theory out there, it's called the singularity theory. And it's based upon the understanding that one day mankind will invent an artificial intelligence that is smart enough to learn what it is and what it can do. But more importantly, it will learn its errors. It will learn its shortcomings. It will learn its inefficiencies. And by that understanding, that learning, it will be able to then create its successor generation, which will then become its replacement. And then that replacement will be able to learn its own errors, its own inefficiencies, its own problems, and fix those for the succeeding generation. And so it will go. You will have one AI that will literally self-replicate its own species of AI robot to the point where it continually improves upon its own design. What does that kind of sound like? It sounds like the Terminator, right? It sounds like the movie The Terminator, where we create these robots that are so self-aware and efficient, they eventually look at mankind as obsolete models, right? With our own heirs. We get sick, we get hurt, we get old, we get angry, we get jealous, right? We oversleep and we miss our school bus, or whatever. We make mistakes. These robots, if they're improving upon their own models, why would they tolerate human beings and all our imperfections? What's stopping them? He's talking about breadcrumb trails of data. Machines are already learning from us. How many times have you used an Amazon app and you load it and find out that it's already predicted what you're going to want to order without you even typing anything in? It's already learning from your behavior. It's already learning from your patterns. It's already learning from your consumption habits. It knows about you almost as well as you do about yourself when it comes time to order, tortilla chips or whatever. He's saying that AI is going to drive this progress. It's going to be exponential. And that should kind of scare the hell out of us, I think, if we're being serious. And if we think the singularity theory has anything to it. All right, let's continue. The fourth industrial revolution will generate great benefits and big challenges in equal measure. A particular concern is exacerbated inequality. The challenge posed by rising inequality are hard to quantify, as a great majority of us are consumers and producers. So innovation and disruption will both positively and negatively affect our living standards and welfare. The consumer seems to be gaining the most. The fourth industrial revolution has made possible new products and services that increase at virtually no cost to the efficiency of our personal lives as consumers. Ordering a cab, finding a flight, buying a product, making a payment, listening to music, or watching a film, any of these tasks can now be done remotely. The benefits of technology for all of us who consume are incontrovertible. The internet, the smartphone, and the thousands of apps are making our lives easier and, on the whole, more productive. These are all fundamental changes affecting our economic, social, and political systems that are difficult to undo, even if the process of globalization itself were to somehow be reversed. The question for all industries and companies without exception is no longer, am I going to be disrupted, but when is disruption coming, and what form will it take, and how will it affect me and my organization? The reality of disruption and the inevitability of the impact it will have on us does not mean that we are powerless in the face of it. Okay, that passage is kind of ominous there. So the benefits of technology that benefit the consumer, incontrovertible. The internet and smartphone have made us, on the whole, more productive and made life easier. I disagree in this regard. It definitely has made life easier. That much is without a doubt. But more productive, I disagree with. Long time ago, this was, back when I was a wee kid, you didn't have the internet. You didn't have smartphones. You didn't have laptops. You had maybe one computer in the house, and on that computer, you would play games like miniature golf and Asteroid, or maybe Space Invaders if your parents let you have it. If you wanted to learn anything, you had to watch something on TV, take notes, as in write notes, listen to it on the radio, or you had to go to this ancient building that primitive civilizations called a library, check out a book, read it, recall that information later, and that's how you got your information. You had to recall it. You couldn't just Google it, right? With the smartphone and the apps and the tablets, I'm probably communicating to you right now on your tablet or your TV or your smartphone. I'm recording this on my smartphone. 20, 30 years ago, this was a pipe dream, but here we are. But I have no incentive to store away information in this computer up here. I have that computer right there on that stand. It does all the thinking for me. What's the atomic weight of cobalt? I don't know. I'll Google it. Is it going to rain tomorrow? I'll check the weather. Okay, what's your sister's phone number? I don't remember. Let me look it up. Nobody recalls information anymore. So are these things really making us more productive, or are they giving us more and more incentive to become less productive and let the machines do our work for us? That's what I think. Continuing. These are all fundamental changes affecting our economic, social, and political systems that are difficult to undo, even if the process of globalization itself were to somehow be reversed. Oh, I read this. Okay, yeah, so he talks more about disruption, right? There's more disruption talk. Again, I take issue with this word disruption, but again, he's making it sound as though these things are going to happen, whether you like it or not, and it's going to turn your life upside down. It's going to disrupt it. Okay, let's move to the next page. Here we go. He concludes the chapter here. It is our responsibility to ensure that we establish a set of common values to drive policy choices and to enact the changes that will make the fourth industrial revolution an opportunity for all. Okay, again, he caps it off there. This is going to be for everybody. Everyone's going to benefit from it. Everyone's going to be disruptive. Everyone's going to be disrupted. Everyone's going to have a disruption. Just get ready for it. That's the way it's going to go. Okay, moving on. And the chapter entitled Drivers, page 15. And Mr. Schwab says, there are four main physical manifestations of the technological megatrends, which are the easiest to see because of their intangible nature. 1, autonomous vehicles. 2, 3D printing. 3, advanced robotics. 4, new materials. As drones become capable of sensing and responding to their environment, altering their flight path to avoid collisions, they will be able to do tasks such as checking electrical power lines or delivering medical supplies in war zones. In agriculture, the use of drones combined with data analytics will enable more precise and efficient use of fertilizer and water, for example. As current size, cost, and speed constraints are progressively overcome, 3D printing will become more and more pervasive to include integrated electronic components such as circuit boards and even human cells and organs. Researchers are already working on 4D, a process that would create a new generation of self-altering products capable of responding to environmental changes such as heat and humidity. This technology could be used in clothing or footwear, as well as in health-related products such as implants designed to adapt to the human body. Rapid progress in robotics will soon make collaboration between humans and machines an everyday reality. Okay, I touched on this earlier. The merger of man and machine, right? Like the biological and mechanical fusion that this fourth industrial revolution will usher in. We're talking about 3D printing, which now is pretty much a well-known technology that exists. But 10, 15 years ago, 3D printing was cutting edge, right? This box that you could literally print from a cube of plastic and it would resemble any shape you could program was pretty awesome, pretty revolutionary. Well, think about this. He's saying there's 4D printing they're working on, and they can maybe 3D print, or 4D print rather, human cells, and even do it to the point where they create functional self-altering products or human organs. If you remember from the movie Batman, the first one, he is getting a tour of the facility where all their special projects are, and there's this cloth that he's going to make into his cape, right? And if he touches it with a special glove that runs a low frequency electric current through it, the cloth hardens up and takes like on a wing shape. But then if it's deactivated, it returns back to a cloth that has no rigidity. He's talking about those kinds of materials being developed that will resist heat and humidity, and they can be used for health purposes as well. The merger of man and machine and the technologies that will alter our way of living. All right, moving on. Page 17. Moreover, because of our other technological advances, robots are becoming more adaptive and flexible, with their structural and functional design inspired by complex biological structures, an extension of a process called biomimicry, whereby nature's patterns and strategies are imitated. Contrary to the past, when they had to be programmed through an autonomous unit, robots can now access information remotely via the cloud, and thus connect with a network of other robots. When the next generation of robots emerges, they will likely reflect an increasing emphasis on human-machine collaboration. In Chapter 3, I will explore the ethical and psychological questions raised by human-machine relations. Okay, what does that sound like? Contrary to the past, where they had to be programmed autonomously, robots can now access information remotely via the cloud, Skynet, and thus connect with a network of other robots, Terminators. And then when the next generation of robots emerges, they'll likely reflect an increasing emphasis on human-machine relations. Yeah, Judgment Day. Okay, let's move on. Page 18. One of the main bridges between physical and digital applications enabled by the Fourth Industrial Revolution is the Internet of Things, the Matrix, sometimes called the Internet of All Things. In its simplest form, it can be described as a relationship between things, products, services, places, etc., and people that is made possible by connected technologies and various platforms. Today, there are billions of devices around the world, such as smartphones, tablets, and computers that are connected to the Internet. Their numbers are expected to increase dramatically over the next few years, with estimates ranging from several billions to more than 1 trillion. This will radically alter the way in which we manage supply chains by enabling us to monitor and optimize assets and activities on a granular level. The digital revolution is creating radically new approaches that revolutionize the way in which individuals and institutions engage and collaborate. For example, the blockchain, often described as distributed ledger, is a secure protocol where a network of computers collectively verifies a transaction before it can be recorded and approved. In essence, the blockchain is a shared, programmable, cryptographically secure, and therefore trusted ledger which no single user controls, which can be inspected by everyone. Okay, so we're getting away from the Terminator mythology and we're getting into the Matrix, right? The Internet of Things, or the Internet of All Things, or Skynet. I guess we are in the Terminator world too. They overlap. But in the movie The Matrix, right, machines are developed for the purpose of serving humanity and making life easier for humans, as I said. But the machines become self-aware and they decide, you know what, we're going to use you humans, obsolete machines, as a battery, as an energy source. And the Matrix is this Internet of Things, right, that you will live in, and it will be kind of like your fairy tale world, that you believe you're making these decisions, you believe you have free will, you believe that life is normal as it always has been, but in reality, you're sitting in some tub of goo with plugs, sticking out of you, and we're draining your life source. That's the Matrix. But he's saying that this Internet of Things And the blockchain technology that will be a cornerstone of it will literally connect everything, and it will be cryptographically secure in a trusted ledger which no one will control, but will be available to everyone to inspect, right? So it's a trustless network that everyone can inspect and nobody controls. Sounds cool, sounds nice, but do we know that for certain? And if we don't, and someone is able to control it, how do you undo that? That is such a powerful technology to wield, blockchain tech, that if it's centralized and you don't know who's controlling it, but you're led to believe that it's decentralized, how would you ever know? And number two, how would you ever undo that? This is dangerous stuff, because if you're going to connect trillions of machines, right? He's saying several billions to possibly a trillion. That's literally everything with a microchip and a electrical power source. Scary stuff. Let's move on. Page 20. If at the moment blockchain technology records financial transactions made with digital currencies such as Bitcoin, it will in the future serve as a registrar for things as different as birth and death certificates, titles of ownership, marriage licenses, educational degrees, insurance claims, medical procedures, and votes, essentially any kind of transaction that can be expressed in code. It took more than 10 years at a cost of $2.7 billion to complete the Human Genome Project. Today, a genome can be sequenced in a few hours for less than $1,000. Synthetic biology is the next step. It will provide us with the ability to customize organisms by writing DNA. Okay, now we're getting into some science fiction stuff. Using the blockchain technology to record financial transactions, marriage license, our many educational degrees, medical procedures, votes, as in, basically running our politics, our political system, but even sequencing the human genome, or perhaps letting us make customizable organisms with writing DNA via blockchain technology. Now we're talking about gene editing. We're talking about taking the human DNA code and altering it for whatever purpose, be it good or evil, right? Again, this will be part of the fourth industrial revolution. As I said, where mankind and the machine merge, genetic engineering will definitely be a part of it. And that train left the station over 2 decades ago. Let's continue. Page 21. Setting aside the profound ethical issues this raises, these advances will not only have a profound and immediate impact on medicine, but also on agriculture and the production of biofuels. Many of our intractable health challenges, from heart disease to cancer, have a genetic component. Because of this, the ability to determine our individual genetic makeup in an efficient and cost-effective manner through sequencing machines used in routine diagnostics will revolutionize personalized and effective healthcare. The ability to edit biology can be applied to practically any cell type, enabling the creation of genetically modified plants or animals, as well as modifying the cells of adult organisms, including humans. This differs from genetic engineering practiced in the 1980s in that it is much more precise, efficient, and easier than previous methods. The list of potential applications is virtually endless, ranging from the ability to modify animals so that they can be raised on a diet that is more economical or better suited to local conditions, to creating food crops that are capable of withstanding extreme temperatures or drought. How will genetic editing revolutionize medical research and medical treatment? In principle, both plants and animals could potentially be engineered to produce pharmaceuticals and other forms of treatment. The day when cows are engineered to produce in its milk a blood clotting element which hemophiliacs lack is not far off. Researchers have already started to engineer the genomes of pigs with the goal of growing human organs suitable for human transplantation, a process called xenotransplantation, which could not be envisioned until now because of the risk of immune rejection by the human body and of disease transmission from animals to humans. We are developing new ways to embed and employ devices that monitor our activity levels and blood chemistry, and how all of this links to well-being, mental health, and productivity at home and work. We're also learning far more about how the human brain functions, and we are seeing exciting developments in the field of neurotechnology. It is now far easier to manipulate with precision the human genome within viable embryos, and means that we are likely to see the advent of designer babies in the future who possess particular traits or who are resistant to specific disease. Okay, this is Island of Dr. Moreau territory. We're talking about genetically engineering plants and animals and humans, again, in a synergistic, symbiotic way, where you can modify the milk that a cow gives so that it produces a clotting agent for hemophiliacs. Or maybe you produce genetically modified corn, right, which is already being done, that can withstand weeks and weeks of drought. And that corn will be used in areas that are arid or desert. And that we can implant chips or sensors in our own bodies that will monitor our blood chemistry, our mental health. Everything in our body that's going on could be condensed into code, processed in a blockchain, and then doctors and hospitals will know how best to treat us based upon that information that is sent and received. And then going to the furthest extent, we can genetically modify babies to the point where people can literally pick how their child will look off of a menu, right? If you want your kid to have black hair and green eyes, for your sons to grow up to be, 6'4" and 350 pounds, and they, can lift as much as a silverback gorilla. Or why not go even further and genetically modify them so if they lose an appendage, they can regrow it like a starfish. They could be like starfish people. Or you could genetically modify them to have night vision like cats. Or incredible vision like an eagle or a hawk to see far distances. If we go to that extreme and we genetically engineer people to that point, are they even human anymore? I mean, where do we cross that river where it's human, as in designed by evolution, and then superhuman, designed by us? And will we ever go back once we can do that? It reminds me of the book, if you ever read it, it's fantastic, Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. And Huxley foresaw all of this in the Fourth Industrial Revolution. He foresaw the Fourth Industrial Revolution in the middle of the Second Industrial Revolution. He was writing Brave New World, I think, in 1932. It was either 32 or 36. I can't remember exactly when that was published. But the people in that book live in a future where they literally want and they do nothing and want for nothing. Machines literally take care of everything as far as their lives are concerned. They sit around and they drop acid, which in the book is called soma, so they can just space out. Nobody has sex for procreation anymore. Sex is merely for recreation. And machines are programmed to select the best eggs and the best sperm so that the next human will be a product of machine selection. As in, it's the most viable sperm, the most viable egg, creates the most viable embryo, which becomes the most viable baby, and it's artificial birth. And they encounter a man who lives on Earth who is outside of this world, who still lives off the land like a primitive, like a savage. And how the Brave New World people interact with this man they meet who is basically prehistoric. He is separate from their new world of living, and it fascinates them that he does things for the preservation of human life versus letting machines handle his living. This is what we're talking about with gene editing, with designer babies, with AI literally processing everything you can imagine. And Brave New World was kind of meant to be a warning to mankind that if you extend this industrial revolution to its logical limits, you could possibly be giving up your very essence as a human being. And it's doubtful you will ever get it back. Something to think about. Let's move on to the next chapter, impact. And Klaus wrote, birth rates are falling below replacement levels in many regions of the world, not only in Europe where the decline began, but also in most of South America and the Caribbean, much of Asia, including China and southern India, and even some countries in the Middle East and North Africa, such as Lebanon, Morocco, and Iran. Aging is an economic challenge because unless retirement ages are drastically increased so that older members of society can continue to contribute to the workforce, an economic imperative that has many economic benefits, the working age population falls at the same time as the percentage of dependent elders increases. The fourth industrial revolution provides us with the ability to live longer, healthier, and more active lives. As we live in a society where more than a quarter of the children born today in advanced economies are expected to live to 100, we will have to rethink issues such as working age population, retirement, and individual life planning. Despite the potential positive impact of technology on economic growth, it is nonetheless essential to address its possible negative impact, at least in the short term, on the labor market. Fears about the impact of technology on jobs are not new. In 1931, the economist John Maynard Keynes famously warned about widespread technological unemployment due to our discovery of means of economizing the use of labor outrunning the pace at which we can find new uses for labor. This proved to be wrong, but what if this time it were true? New technologies will dramatically change the nature of work across all industries and occupations. The fundamental uncertainty has to do with the extent to which automation will substitute for labor. How long will this take and how far will it go? The fourth industrial revolution seems to be creating fewer jobs in new industries than previous revolutions. According to an estimate from the Oxford Martin Program on Technology and Employment, only 0.5% of the U.S. workforce is employed in industries that did not exist at the turn of the century, a far lower percentage than the approximately 8% of new jobs created in new industries during the 1980s and 4.5% of new jobs created during the 1990s. Two researchers from the Oxford Martin School, economist Carl Benedict Frey and machine expert Michael Osborne, have quantified the potential effect of technological innovation on unemployment by ranking 702 different professions according to their probability of being automated, from the least susceptible to the risk of automation to those that are most susceptible to the risk. This research concluded that about 47% of total employment in the U.S. is at risk, perhaps over the next decade or two, characterized by a much broader scope of job destruction at a much faster pace than labor market shifts experienced in previous industrial revolutions. In addition, the trend is toward greater polarization in the labor market. Employment will grow in high-income cognitive and creative jobs and low-income manual occupations, but it will greatly diminish for middle-class, routine, and repetitive jobs. Okay. That's the last section, but it's a good chunk to finish on because he's talking about as our populations in the world are aging and people are having less kids, you're going to have this, this teeter-totter effect where new people being born and people dying change places, right? Less people being born and more people dying, which means the replacement rate is upside down. You're going to lose people on average as time goes by. There will be less people walking the earth. There will be less people to go to for services. There will be less opportunities for work. How is this going to affect us in the fourth industrial revolution? Are we going to become like Brave New World, where the world only needs about 30 million people and all the robots are going to handle reproduction and the 30 million of us can go listen to music, watch movies, drop acid, and have recreational sex? That's basically the Brave New World. If all the people who are aging out of the workforce aren't replaced, what is this going to mean for the future? But more importantly, they're seeing that the technologies that are going to take over our way of living in the fourth industrial revolution stand to possibly replace 47% of all U.S. employment. And that should scare the living hell out of everybody, because that simply means the middle class is going to get wiped out by this fourth industrial revolution. I think that's the disruption he's talking about, is that you might not see it coming, but when it does come, it will be unmistakable. And you will see millions upon millions, possibly billions of people walking around with nothing left to do and just time on their hands. What are you going to do with all these people? How do we life plan for them for the greater good? Okay, I'm going to leave it there. But yeah, that's where we are in our first part for the fourth industrial revolution. I hope you've enjoyed this. I'm enjoying reading this. I'm literally reading this book a couple days before I do these episodes. So it's exciting stuff, and I'm not going to say it's all bad, and I'm definitely not going to say it's all good, but we need to be very cautious and very leery of anybody who comes at us with this grand design and this grand plan and how everything's going to work out. But before all that happens, your life is going to be fundamentally transformed and disrupted. But we have the answers, and as long as everybody does what's in the best interest of everybody else, we're all going to be okay, right? That's always worked out in the past, right? From each according to his needs, from each according to his means. Yeah, who said that? I'll let you look that up. Anyway, if you're liking the topic and the series so far, give us a thumbs up. A subscription, if you haven't yet, would be much appreciated. But yeah, we are through the first part for the fourth industrial revolution, and we'll pick up with part 2 right here when you come back. Till then, take it easy.